Hello, friends, and welcome to another live edition of Syracuse Sports as Syracuse football training camp continues. We're kind of in the dog days of summer, but still making some progress. We're heading towards the first scrimmage on Saturday. Both Fran Brown and Jeff Nixon have talked about the importance of the scrimmages in determining who will be the starting quarterback for Syracuse, Steve Angeli or Ricky Collins. So we're getting closer to getting some answers from that. And all the things happening at Syracuse football training camp with Javon Edmonds. I'm Brent Axe. It's great to be back here with you guys. It's great to hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. As always, we're going to answer some of your questions and comments a little later on in the pod. But being a Syracuse Sports Insider gives you direct text message access to me anytime. Your questions, your comments, your thoughts, things you want us to ask Syracuse players and coaches during SU football training camp. All the latest sent directly to you, right to your phone, cut through the social media clutter, exclusive insight from us from camp as a Syracuse Sports Insider. All the info's there on your screen. To sign up today, try it free for 2 weeks. And it's just $3.99 a month after that. Javon, we got a few things to talk about tonight. I want to focus on the wide receivers a little bit. We focused on the quarterback competition. Well, who are those quarterbacks throwing to? I feel like this room may be a little underrated at this point. We'll get into that. Some latest news and notes that we learned today. We saw some 11-on-11 real football earlier this week. Some takeaways from that. We're going to hear from Ricky Collins a little bit later on. Caught up with him tonight. And a couple other things we will discuss, including what's popping at camp. But I turn to you, Javon. What's popping with you? What did we learn today? What was your big takeaway from our Thursday visit to Syracuse football training camp?
We got a whopping 14 minutes today.
Got to make the most of it. Yeah.
No, but that's because they had 11-on-11 situational stuff today. I want to say they ran 2-minute drill, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So you're getting closer to real football. First scrimmage is, I think, 48 hours from now. You and I will be working the phones to find out all we can about what went down. I mean, today was more of the same from what we got to see. One-on-ones. Ricky Collins, great deep ball thrower. Steve Angeli, accurate between the numbers in that intermediate range. Jonte Cook, the guys love. Him and Devin Grant had a little bit of a back and forth today that was playful. And you need that kind of trash talk from your teammates. Because Jonte was very adamant that Devin was holding him. And Devin was like,
and he was.
and like what I appreciated from that, back and forth though, was even then, like Devin really was on some let me help my teammate stuff, where he was like, nah, John, take that. That was a bad route. You ran right into me. You got to run a better route than that. And that's the type of stuff that Fran wants in his locker room. So although that was a sporty back and forth, it still showed you the culture that the team is trying to set. Right. So that was a very slept-on moment of practice for me today.
Absolutely. And Jelly was throwing a sideline route to Cook. He went the wrong way, and Grant was in a way, it was a teaching moment, but he was upset. He's like, come on, man, you got to run the right route. That's a dead route. What are you doing? Like, encouraging him, like you got to get there. And then Cook ran a great route right after that when he got back in rotation. So the ups and downs of camp. But that's one thing I really noticed today, Javon, a lot of chirping. Wide receivers, corners really going at it. Not that we don't hear chirping every day, but today I felt like it got kicked up a notch. They're getting closer to that scrimmage, and you could tell they're getting at each other a little bit. And you can't ever take for granted the soundtrack of Fran Brown at a Syracuse football practice. The consistent booming voice, words we can't even repeat here on a live internet stream, but Fran is very passionate. Fran gets at it. Fran, I wrote it down here somewhere. I'll have to find it, but he is just on it constantly. And he wears that wireless mic. So it's hard to miss him because he booms over practice more than anybody, but just consistent and passionate coaching from him. A couple of notes from today. We learned from Syracuse co-offensive coordinator, tight ends coach Michael Johnson, that Jamie Tremble has been in a green jersey because he has spasms in his lower leg. So it's basically a precaution at this point. He's had a helmet. He's been going through some drills. He's not completely out of action, but when anybody's in a green, you kind of want to wonder why. But in this case, we're learning it's a little bit of a precaution. He should be back out there at full speed at some point here. I'm not a doctor. I just play one on a podcast, but even Coach Johnson said, I don't want to speak for the trainer, but it does seem to be precautionary. Jaleel Martin was also spotted in a green jersey today. And Javon, the other day in that, I believe it was that 11-on-11, if I'm not mistaken, you saw Jaleel really get into it with somebody. So maybe they're being precautious with him after taking a big shot there. But he is in a 3-man competition right now for that star position, that extra safety in Syracuse's defense with Ibn McDaniels and Caden Brown right now. So any reps you lose there could hold him back. But he's somebody that's certainly been standing out at camp so far.
Yes, he's got some reps with the ones. And so you brought up the secondary, and I hate to go from a positive to a negative. But the first thing that came to my mind is Demetrius Samuel, which is going to be the thing with a lot of guys. A lot of people that watch this podcast. I won't say Demetrius, there's potential there, but he looks like a freshman.
Yeah.
This camp.
No doubt.
Demetrius can get a little handsy at times, and not necessarily in the good way, and a little late to getting his head turned to the ball. Today in the one-on-ones, Emmanuel Ross kind of bailed him out. He beat him on a route and just dropped the ball. I think it was a slant on the right side moving. And Demetrius has very good moments in practice, and then he has some that says, oh, yeah, that's right, he's a freshman. So it's more so on board of what I've been seeing with the corners of they're going to get tested.
Yeah.
It's going to be probably the most vulnerable position for Syracuse this season. And you're just going to have to see how it pans out.
You could see the boomer bust there with Demetrius because he does make some great plays that make you say, wow. And then he's learning. He's a freshman. He's 17, and all those mechanics that have to come. And when you're getting handsy like that, Javon, it's somebody's getting by you, right? So you have to learn how to keep people in front of you and all that. But that's a nice transition into what we saw in 11-on-11 the other day. Now, I want to stress here, this big chunk of salt with these observations, okay? Coaches like to try different people, different positions. It's early in camp. So this is not a firm depth. I wouldn't even put this in pencil, okay? I would put it in disappearing ink. But this is what we have seen so far, and it does give you a little bit of a sense of who they're thinking should be the ones in some cases. And I think some positions are already set and others are still in transition. But this is what we saw the other day on the ones for when we saw a true 11-on-11, okay, just to give you a little bit of a sense of it. Javon, from everything I've seen and heard, Steve Angeli and Ricky Collins are splitting reps right down the middle, right? So I would put both of them as QB1. And it happened to be the case we saw that Angeli went first, but they are even these things out. And in the case of the GoPro cam, right, what does that mean? Who's got the GoPro cam on their helmet? Today, they both had it. Right? So we were thinking maybe that's an indication of maybe the guy who's got it on a particular day is QB1, but they both had it today. So they are splitting those right down the middle. Willis and Nixon are your running backs. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say on the depth chart, you're going to see Ricky Collins. You would see Ricky Collins or Steve Angeli. Yeah.
There's an order.
There are positions where it's going to be one name. Quarterback's not one of those. Right now, this is Ricky Collins or Steve Angeli.
A lot of oars on the depth chart. That's the middle name. I would probably put that at the running back too, because both Willis and Nixon are RB1. Now Nixon goes first mostly in the drills. I think that's a hat tip to the veteran, but they're both going to get out there, and they were splitting the ones. Now again, I would put this in very much transition phase because they're trying different things at offensive line. But this is the one we saw. Okay, Big Spoon, Travion Mack. I think one offensive line position locked in is Austin Collins. Austin Collins is going to be the center of this team. So I think you could put that in firm ink. Okay. TJ Ferguson just off being in a green jersey was out there, the Florida State / Alabama transfer. And Big Byron Washington got some first-team reps, though I think that is fully in experiment mode because there was an offensive line that you guys saw a little earlier in camp when I was covering Bill's camp last week that when Nicole Bertrand, you had Rice out there at guard, we mentioned Collins, you had Pringle at guard and Spoon at the other tackle. So clearly Javon, Dale Williams is searching for his top 7 or 8 at this point of camp.
Yeah, and Pringle told me he's been working primarily at tackle. So that's what that tells me is Syracuse. Okay, maybe this is me optimistically thinking. If you're a Syracuse fan, you want to think that means Syracuse has a good problem of they're going to be rotating 7 or 8 guys.
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario. The worst case scenario is it looks shaky out there and they're trying to find who the best guys are. But I honestly do believe they have the good problem of like they wanted to get bigger on the line. They did that. They wanted to get deeper. I believe they did that. I think
they got bigger, they got deeper. And I'll tell you what, Dan Villari said something really interesting, Javon, in that while it's tough to get 5 across the board that have all the reps together because you're going to replace 4 offensive linemen, he said a lot of these guys have the experience or have at least played in big games, have played in big spots to make up for the lack of cohesion from left to right on the offensive line. For what it's worth, I thought that was an interesting observation.
Absolutely. So I think they've got the good problem of they'll be able to rotate. And as the season goes on, that'll be fresher legs. And we all know how the schedule ends. Miami, Notre Dame, bye week, Boston College. That's going to work out great for when you get into the last quarter of the season.
The turnstile will be turning on that offensive line. Again, that might not necessarily be a bad thing. The receivers we saw, Cook, Gill, and Hatcher were out there, though, as we're going to talk about here coming up. So I want to save it for that conversation. But Justice Ross Simmons he's having a spectacular camp so far. So we'll get into that. And Dan Villari at tight end. Defense, Samuel and Chris Peel, the Georgia transfer, were out there when what we saw a couple days ago. Grant, Chestnut, and Martin were your safeties. We mentioned Martin now in the green jersey, so we'll keep an eye on that. Gary Bryant, the transfer from South Dakota, and Anwar Sparrow were the linebackers, though I fully anticipate Derek McDonald certainly is going to play, and I think that Antoine Delorier, the freshman, is going to work his way into that rotation. Jobity and Tank were your defensive tackles inside, and you had Jaquez and David O on the outside, but certainly we know that David Reese, the Cal transfer, is nipping at the heels. So that's what we saw. Take it with a grain of salt. They're trying different things, but those are the names that you're starting to see kind of the cream rising to the top, if you will.
Absolutely. I was somewhat shocked to not see Devian Kerr out there.
Mm-hmm.
He's made some plays on the ball this camp from what we've seen and from what Syracuse has posted. But again, I think corner is going to be a rotating door. So I think the sure thing is that Fran wants to see Demetrius and Chris Peel perform. I think after that, it's going to be a lot of finding reps for guys. I don't know if anybody beyond cornerback 2 is going to be, a safe spot. And I mean all season long with that. But, Kevin Jobity was the guy that was the most interesting because, that was an edge. And Elijah Robinson told us earlier this week, that was a guy that when the staff got to Syracuse, they thought was just better suited for the interior. And he put on 30 pounds this offseason to move inside. And that's part of the inheriting a new roster process of guys aren't always going to be as big as you want them to be or won't be in the positions that you want them to be in. So Teron Hales got moved to corner. So it's a reminder that the staff is still very much shaping this roster into being its roster and not the roster that it inherited. But Jobity on the interior was probably one of the more interesting takeaways. And David Omoperiola, it was good to see that he survived the spring in the sense of it wasn't just an experiment phase on the edge. Like, no, that's really going to be where he's at. So that tells you they no longer need him in the linebackers room, which allows them to bolster a pass rush unit that's going to need it.
All right, Javon, per what the headline of the pod is tonight, I want to spend a little time on the wide receivers. And I just want to dip into my inbox a little bit here. Story time with Uncle Brent for a minute, okay? So I get these emails pretty much every day from these betting sites, right? And they send you odds on things, every day. I get this stuff, right? It's interesting to see what Vegas is thinking on this and that, and some of that stuff I just kind of roll my eyes at. Like, oh, you could bet on that. You can bet on anything in this country, right? But I got this today. ACC passing, receiving, and rushing yard leaders. Okay. Now, because people were probably curious, they did list Steve Angeli 12-1 to lead the ACC in passing. Ricky Collins not listed. Take that for what it's worth. On the rushing side, Yassine Willis 15-2 to lead the ACC in rushing, which I think is going to be really hard considering the emphasis on throwing the ball in this offense. And
they're going to be a committee running back for him. I spoke to him and Will Nixon today, and they were very adamant it's going to be a committee.
So there you go. For entertainment purposes only, I would not put anything on who's a bigger fan of Yassine Willis than me, but I would not put him to win that category. Now I'm going to get to the receivers here. All right. Now just stay with me. CJ Daniels, Miami 5-1. Chris Bell, Louisville 13-2. Antonio Williams, Clemson 7-1. Andrell Anthony, Duke 8-1. Kenny Johnson, Pitt 8-1. Trell Harris, Virginia 10-1. Colin Lacey, Louisville 12-1. Lewis Bond, BC 12-1. Deuce Robinson, Florida State 18-1. Kobe Paysauer, North Carolina 18-1. Carlos Hernandez, Wake Forest 20-1. Noah Rogers, NC State 20-1. RJ Maryland, SMU. CJ Williams, Stanford 22-1. Eric Rivers, Georgia Tech. Tron Grizel, Cal. Donovan Green, Virginia Tech 25-1. Malik Rutherford, Squirrel White, great name, Florida State 25-1. Jordan Hudson, SMU 40-1. Okay. Were you paying attention, kids? What did I not say on that list? They did not list a Syracuse receiver at all on that list, which tells you at least what the gurus in Vegas think about the transition in the Syracuse offense from Kyle McCord to Steve Angeli or Ricky Collins, and that any of these receivers are not even good enough to get in that mix. No Jonte Cook, no Daryl Gill Jr., no Justice Ross Simmons, who we're going to get into here, but wow, they don't even put a Syracuse guy on the list. Fair, unfair? I mean, I guess if you're setting it from a Vegas perspective, and this is an offense, remember last year, Javon, that led the country in completions, led the country in attempts, led the country in passing yards, and was sixth in touchdowns. But we all know who's missing. He's playing for the Philadelphia Eagles in preseason football tonight. So is this Syracuse football receiver room a little underrated, if not disrespected a little bit? I think I'm a little higher on these guys than some people are.
So my thing with the odds is that if you remember last season, the yardage was still spread out. Like 3 guys touched 800 plus, and then Daryl Gill was at 500 plus. So there's not really, it seems like Jeff Nixon's got a little bit of Mike Shanahan in him, where it's not the players, it's the plays, and the ball's just going to go to the open read. At least that's how McCord ran the offense last year. So all you can believe is that that's how Ricky or Steve are going to run the offense this season. So I don't think the odds are, some indictment on the room. I was on ESPN radio yesterday, and I said I think that's the deepest room on the team. They've got so many options that
I agree with you. Yeah.
If nobody's able to step up for OG in the tight ends room, that's fine. They can just go 4 or 5 wide whenever they want with the receivers. And
Michael Johnson said that tonight. You take the production and you spread it elsewhere. I think he's actually right about that.
Yeah. Now, Michael Johnson's answer concerned me because that didn't sound like a guy with much confidence in his run. But
we're gonna get to Villari in a second.
I won't push that narrative out there. I'm not just what it sounded like to me. But that production doesn't have to come from the tight end room. They can put out as many receivers as they want and say, forget the tight end position and save those guys for the run game when you need to get a little bigger. That is a deep room at receiver. Deep room.
And you're replacing, remember, not only your top 3 receiving targets, your top 4 receivers, period, because LaQuint Allen was the 4th leading receiver on this team in terms of number of catches. Trevor Pena, 84 catches, 941 yards. Jackson Meeks was a 1,000-yard receiver on 78 catches. OG, 73 catches, 934 yards, per we were just talking about. And LaQuint had 64 catches for 521 yards. So Gill is the leading receiver back from last year, 31 catches for 570 yards. Omari Hatcher is back. I got a lot of questions from the insiders. Is Omari Hatcher practicing? Is he back out there? He is. He's healthy, and he's in the mix. Obviously, Jonte Cook, the spark that he has to provide. He and Steve Angeli tonight, Javon, as we were walking out of the Ensley Center, the last 2 in the building, working on routes, getting extra work in. Austin Collins staying later with both quarterbacks, working on snaps, talking. Gill was one of the last guys to come talk to us in our media availability because he was working with the quarterbacks a little bit, as Dan Villari was. Dan Villari also one of the last people always to leave.
That's
but I agree
every
with
day.
you. That's every day. Absolutely. Guys that I've asked some of the veteran guys like Gill about, he says Jalen Hornsby's having a great camp. I've seen some great catches from Jalen Hornsby. I like Jalen Hornsby physically. 6'3", can get up there. I've seen some great catches from him. I think he's a little young to get into the consistent rotation, but I've had 3 guys tell me that Boobie Johnson's making great plays out there every day at camp and is out there showing out. And he's a freshman. It's going to be hard for him to bump in there, but people really like what they're seeing from him. Emmanuel Ross is somebody we've got to put in this conversation, right? But what you just said a minute ago, something I completely agree with. Now, it's all in the quarterback and the timing and getting them in the rhythm and everything, but that is arguably, to me, the most talented room on this team. So I just wanted to bring in that Vegas thing because it just goes to show you that from the outside looking in, people look at, they lost their top 4 guys. They don't have McCord. They're replacing the offensive line. I get the inclination to be like, there's going to be a step down there. And from those numbers I brought up earlier, this is not a team that's going to lead the country in passing again. I feel comfortable in saying that. But it's not for lack of talent. There are really good receivers in that room.
So I don't think they'll lead the country in passing again. But I will say this. Let's say Syracuse isn't as good in the trenches as we think they're going to be. And let's just say the running backs really suffer because of it. And they just struggle to fill the LaQuint Allen shoes. I am inclined to believe that this Syracuse team can hang into some dogfights this year. By just say, forget it. We're going to go old Pac-12, Big 12, circa mid-2000s, where there was no defense being played and a bunch of shootouts because they were just going no huddle and going spread the whole time. I think that could be a successful offense for Syracuse. I'm like, hey, just go out there and go 5 wide, no huddle every series and just air it out. Go full out air raid. I think that could work for Syracuse this season.
And it's
if
funny
all else fails.
If all else fails, for sure. And in a case of stats aren't everything, I mean, this team was 125th in the country running the football last year. They averaged just under 97 yards, just under 100 yards rushing per game. But think how many big runs LaQuint Allen had, how many big plays LaQuint Allen had. You've had some big runs last year as well, particularly that UNLV game I'm thinking of. Like, moments matter more than numbers in this case. Like, give LaQuint Allen the ball, get out of the way, and let him run over people. Yassine and Will Nixon could go out there and prove that, even though the numbers are not going to match up there. So we're in agreement there, but we do have to mention the tight end because I am intrigued by the faith that all parties involved have in Dan Villari here, Javon. Dan Villari is the easiest person to root for on this team. We just said it. He's always the last guy out of the room. He has, I picture in my head that season that he carried Syracuse literally over the finish line to make a bowl game prior to when Fran Brown took over in the last days of Dino Babers, covered in ice bags at a press conference with his bowl-bound T-shirt on, just as exhausted as a human being can be. have him and LaQuint Allen just running this old school offense. Great guy. He's been our media MVP before. Last year, torn labrum. I'm going to play the clip from Villari here in a second, but battling through so many injuries. But can he be the lead tight end? I don't even want to compare him to OG because they're not the same player. They're not the same style of plays. You're going to hear Villari say in a second here. But I think it's fair to say, while he is the easiest guy to root for, Javon, he also has the most to prove. I think of anybody on the two deep that he can handle what that position calls for, particularly in an offense that likes to throw the ball.
Everyone I've spoken to, and they say, listen to Dan when he tells you all he didn't stink last season. He was just playing through a torn labrum. Everyone I've spoken to says, just watch out. That guy is going to, somebody described him as a wide receiver trapped in a tight end's body this camp. So if that holds true, then there's an added factor for Syracuse's passing offense. And he puts in the work. So, hard work tends to pay off. I wouldn't rule him completely out. Now, you can only go off of what you've seen from him so far. But I will say there is a lot of confidence around the Orange football program about the type of season Dan Villari is going to have in 2025.
Let's listen to a couple of clips from Dan Villari. We had the chance to catch up with him tonight at practice.
Filling Aronde's shoes, but I feel like I have my own style, and I feel like I'm very good with the ball in my hands. I feel like I'm very nifty and can do a lot of things, can hurdle you, can run through you, can run around you, and I'm real excited to display that this year. I feel like I can run routes, I can block, I can throw, I can block in space, I can block inline, play special teams, and ultimately I don't want to talk about it. I'm just going to show it this year.
That's pretty much what you said other people are saying about him, and Villari encapsulated the whole thing in that clip right there. One more from Villari. We mentioned the injuries that he battled last year. He was pretty honest about it.
Fought through it. Torn labrum, my left shoulder. I had nerve damage in my neck, and I just taped up both shoulders every week and just went to work and just tried to do my job.
So knock on wood, you're healthy this year. How does that change your approach and free you up to do the things you want to do and having that primary role in the offense now?
Yeah, I'm very healthy now. When I hit people, I don't get stingers. You know what I mean? I can stay in the game, and it just frees up everything. I feel loose. I feel fast. I feel strong, and feel really good.
So, look, I hope Dan Villari comes out and has a great year and has a great walk-off season, because he has done so much, transition from quarterback, and has done everything that two coaching staffs now have asked of him. Villari was the one after that Baber season, Javon, who was very upfront about how things had to change. The culture had to change. They had to step it up, and the Fran Brown staff came in and emulated what he wanted to see happen. So easiest guy to root for, most to prove. And here's the thing. I feel for the injuries. That neck roll he was wearing last year was not just a throwback to, Brian Bosworth and Dan Connolly and the guys back in the day that would wear that. My issue with Villari, pardon me, shout out Dan Connolly. My issue with Dan Villari, drops. He just dropped too many passes right in the mittens that he had the opportunity to get when OG was not the feature guy. That's all. And I think if you shake that off, I think you're going to prove some people wrong right away.
And think about it like this. And I'm not going to make excuses for pass catchers. I'm the little brother of a wide receiver. So I won't make too many excuses for pass catchers because he'd strangle me the next time I saw him. But you got to think, if you can't turn your neck, as he said, damaged nerves in his neck, you can't turn your neck on time to track the football, then torn labrum. So you can't even get your left hand up in time for the football, and you're already late to the football because you couldn't turn your neck in time. Little hard to catch the ball. So,
fair. I want to see if that was the reason.
But those issues, being healthy, is going to help a lot.
Caught up with Ricky Collins a little bit tonight, and I wanted to play a couple of clips from Ricky about the quarterback battle and just what he is looking at right now. And I like this the philosophy of what a quarterback is going through right here. Here's Ricky.
You said just make the most of what you get. Don't count your reps and make your reps count. So whatever you get, just make the most of it and take advantage of what you get.
Don't count your reps. Make your reps count. I like that. Wisdom from the youngster in that case. And the reps, by all accounts, Javon, they are 50-50 right now. I think, what did Fran deem it at his first presser? 52-48, right? Was the percentage. But in terms of reps, they are split down the middle here. In that scrimmage, it's going to be fascinating to see the breakout and how many each will get, because they want to see an even representation of both running the ones.
I'm going to steal that line from Ricky the next time I pop in on a football practice. I truly think
I like it.
That is one of the best lines of advice you can give to a ball player in camp. Don't count your reps. Just make those reps count.
Beautiful. Here's Ricky on his approach, trying to earn the starting quarterback position.
Preparing. You just got to prepare, study, and put extra work in when you can. You got to be close to perfect as you can. Obviously, nobody's perfect. You throw interceptions, you fumble the ball, whatever the case. You have MAs, you forget a play, whatever the case may be. But you got to eliminate those as much as you can. Those have to be the ratio that has to be like 90-5, or whatever the case may be. So you got to slim that down as much as you can, make less mistakes as you can. Like you said, I would be perfect.
And Ricky was a guy who spent a lot of time after practice in the spring. He's doing the case in the fall now. Don't count your reps, make your reps count. But it's the stuff we don't see, Javon. It's something that Fran Brown talked about on the ACC network when they were here earlier this week. Who does the team gravitate to? What are they doing away from the field? It's a lot of stats and numbers and film and grades, but it's also the intangibles here. So who's winning that category right now? I'm asking a rhetorical question because I don't know. But the stuff we get to see in that department, I can't even pick a winner there either. I think they're both doing what they need to do in that department as well, from everything we've heard and seen.
Yeah, so I've been told both the leaders, you hear that word thrown around sometimes. Steve Angeli is more vocal than Ricky, from what I've been told. But physically, I think we all know it, and everyone said, Ricky Collins is just the more gifted of the two. The arm talent is, it's what everybody's looking for in football these days. You want all the guys that, you could plug into a Lincoln Riley system and imitate Patrick Mahomes like Caleb Williams does or something. Ricky's got the arm talent. He's got the athleticism. Yasin Willis was like, I'll be honest with you. If Ricky wanted to, he could come to our room. Our room being the running backs room. He's that dynamic with the ball in his hands. So we'll find out after this first scrimmage on Saturday. See what we know.
It is interesting, Javon. You hit on it there, and I'm going to go to some insider questions here. Who surprised they're the quarterback competition is most on their minds right now. But I feel like Ricky and Steve are filing themselves into those categories. When you ask players and coaches these days about Ricky, arm talent, physicality, right? A little quieter than Steve. Steve, the word I keep getting about Steve, maturity, leadership, runs the huddle, right? More vocal. Now, per our first question here, Javon, which feeds into the discussion here because you're accounting everything into this. Richard C. asks, how does Steve Angeli's arm strength compare to Kyle McCord? It's not Kyle McCord level. Okay. But Angeli's not throwing ducks out there. Steve Angeli has good arm strength. Does he have great, sharp? Look, Javon, Kyle McCord did not miss a throw in camp all last season. I don't think I saw him miss one darn throw. He has an NFL arm. He's out there tonight playing in an NFL preseason game. Steve Angeli does not have that arm, but Steve Angeli has a very good arm for a college football quarterback. And I see no fault in it, but Kyle McCord had a special arm. So if you're comparing it to Kyle, no. But can Steve Angeli go play a college football game? He absolutely can. Is it as strong as Ricky Collins' arm? No, it's not. Ricky has that as that. If you're checking the box, who's got the stronger arm? Clearly Ricky.
Yeah, I'm glad you put it like that because I that's something I don't want to get lost in translation. Like we're not saying Steve Angeli has a noodle arm at all.
Not at all.
You know,
not at all.
Now, granted, I will say this: we don't see too many start on the -25 where you've got room to air it out. You know, situations in practice. So we don't really have a feel for how far he can throw it, but we do see them start at the -45. So we know he's not throwing ducks from the 50-yard range, you know, which is the least of your worries, you know, like that checks that box at least. So, you know, he doesn't have a noodle arm. It's just,
no,
you know, we just have been told that Ricky Collins can throw 75, 80. You know,
and we've seen it. We've seen it at times as well. Our insiders got the text, sent some videos from practice, and Jelly dropped one right in Jonte Cook's bucket. Like he is putting it where it needs to be. But where I think Angeli's just a slightly behind, and we saw it in that Devin Grant Cook thing today. There's just some timing issues that he's playing catch up on. That, and Jonte Cook wasn't in spring ball, but certain guys that got more time with Ricky in spring ball. Let's see. Buddy P on the quarterbacks. Javon says the good version of this is that we have two starting caliber quarterbacks. The bad version is that neither has been able to win the job outright. Said I'm just ready for Atlanta. See what this team has. So much production. Turnover is both exciting and scary, and I'm ready to see it play out. I think Buddy is speaking for all of us here, right? We're still so close yet so far away from the start of the season. 23 days till the Orange take on Tennessee in Atlanta. And Jonah asked this, Javon, from what you guys have seen at camp, how often does Ricky take off and use his legs? And do you think there'll be any design runs for him? What do you think of
that? So, from what we see, they kind of like want the guys to just make the throw. The only one I've seen take off so far is Rich Beelan, who can move, by the way. That's a small dude who can move. He's got some PJ Walker with wiggle to him. And Fran would know a little something about that. But I think one thing I have noticed from Ricky in camp, I think he wants to save his legs for the season. I think camp is going to be. Because think about it like this: what are really the penalties of messing up in camp, besides, of course, for him losing the starting job, right? But what harm is it for you to go out there with the mission of, hey, I've got to get on the same timing with my receivers and learn what catches they can and can't make? What is the harm of doing all you can to just sit back there and make the throw, you know? And he's not taking any sacks. I will say that. And I don't think the line has broken down to that point where anyone has absolutely had to resort to getting taken off. I mean, to taking off, except for Rich Beelan, who is battling for fourth on the depth chart. So he's in there with the fours, you know.
Yeah, right now Luke Harney seems to be the fourth right now, who, by the way, is also pretty quick himself. I've heard he's one of the fastest players on the team already. Walking in as a freshman, he was there for spring ball. So, yeah, those guys there is some speed in that room, for sure. But in terms of extending plays with his legs, there was that highlight we brought up, that Justice Ross Simmons catch, which is one of the best catches of camp, at least that we've seen, that they put out there. And Syracuse likes to put out those highlights, even when we're not viewing practice. That was a throw Ricky extended with his legs.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, the answer is unequivocal. Can Steve Angeli do that? Yes. Can he do it as well as Ricky? I don't think so.
No.
I think that is an asset in Ricky's game. So I think what we're starting to see, Javon, is the decision that will be made by this coaching staff is, do you want the more physically able quarterback out there and hope the decision-making, the maturity, and all those things flow? Or do you want the more mature, run the offense, been there, done that quarterback, and hope the physical attributes are good enough out there, right? That's the decision this staff has to make. And There's no preseason games in college football. They're putting a lot on these scrimmages, and I think that's why. Those scrimmages are going to test those things as well as can be.
Speaking of that, it's time to allow. Listen, if we've got these glorified exhibition games in basketball right now, and can we stop that? Can we stop like top 25 teams scrimmaging? Make it a part of your non-conference schedule and stop playing Hofstra. Please make that your scrimmage. Like start allowing the scrimmages in football, please. Like make Colgate a scrimmage. I don't want to see that on the schedule.
I agree.
Can we bring back Syracuse versus West Virginia for the Schwartzwalder Trophy? Can we get that in the regular season instead of Colgate?
Thank you. Why is this taking so long to become a serious conversation? Which, by the way, Deion Sanders and Fran Brown brought to the forefront in the spring. Syracuse basketball is going to Buffalo to play an exhibition against UB this year. They rarely leave the Dome, but if they could have exhibitions, why can't football? We need a true preseason exhibition football game. Hopefully next year we'll be talking about that so we can learn a little bit more about what's going on with this team. The reason, of course, being Javon, is how cloak and dagger football coaches are about showing anything this time of the year. But I think we're past that. So hopefully sometime soon.
And I'm not even saying allow the joint practices like you see in the NFL. Hell, Nate Wiggins from my beloved Ravens just like snuffed out a Colts player this week. Don't need that. I don't need the joint practices in college. You at least give them the exhibitions, man.
We need it. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of Syracuse Sports. Thanks to our Syracuse Sports Insiders for their great insight, questions, and comments. As always, keep them coming. We'll be back at practice on Friday. The scrimmage is Saturday. The next time we hear from head coach Fran Brown will be Monday. So we'll keep that coming. We're going to talk to some defensive players on Friday. More coverage to come from Javon, Chris Carlson, and I. Check that out on syracuse.com. And, of course, the insiders will be kept up to date at all times. So please sign up today to be a Syracuse Sports Insider. Please also, wherever you get your podcasts, like, follow, subscribe. Syracuse Sports, if that's Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever your favorite podcast outlet is, so you know when a new episode of Syracuse Sports is up. Our insiders get informed when we're going live, but you guys want to know when the pods are up and running, either live or you can listen and watch on your time. So please do that. Leave us a review, too. That always helps as well. For now, for Javon Edmonds, I'm Brent Dax. Thanks for hanging and listening to some football chatter with us tonight, friends. We'll be back again soon with another edition of Syracuse Sports. Have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon, guys.